Did you see where Dan Mullen, former Florida Gators coach Dan Mullen, picked the Georgia Bulldogs to win the national championship? That came after the first week of the season. Dandy Dan with the Dogs knocking out Alabama to play for the national championship, those two teams. It's quite a statement from the former Florida coach, former Mississippi State coach, a guy that had to go head to head with Georgia and Alabama a season ago, losing both games. One getting kind of really drilled by Georgia, and the other um, a tight loss at in the swamp to Alabama. And then soon thereafter, Dan Mullen was had checked out. So it looks like Dan's going to pick these games most week. I don't see how he's going to necessarily change who he picks. I said earlier that Georgia beat Alabama. He actually has them beating Ohio State for the national championship. Maybe that's me kind of correcting Dan. I don't know, but he has Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State. I mean, those are the three monsters of college football television. I'll tell you that right now. You want to throw Notre Dame in there, you can, but nobody draws more eyeballs than that group. The only game that might be slightly bigger is the Iron Bowl. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. It's about Georgia's 2021 national championship. We'll see if they have a 2022 edition. The forwards from Jeff Foxworthy. There's images you cannot see anywhere else, and there's definitely stories. This one here is talking about Nakobe Dean watching Alabama celebrate the SEC championship. We've got images from all throughout the season. This is an image you didn't see anywhere else. Make sure you have this on your coffee table. If you do not have a gift for your loved ones for Christmas and the holidays, that's the one to get. We'll be at Red Zone this weekend briefly. Make sure that you're dropping by there on Clayton Street downtown. Look, I don't know if Georgia's going to win the national championship or not. I would be surprised at this stage if they're not playing in the playoff. They looked too good. It does not appear that they're going to drop a game this season. It doesn't appear that way. Okay. It doesn't appear that Ohio State's going to drop a game. It doesn't. Well, maybe more Ohio State than Alabama and Georgia. But we saw the Dogs hop over the Buckeyes to take the number 2 spot. Their rankings are irrelevant, but it is one more thing to talk about. Dan Mullen uh, certainly had his struggles against Georgia in his time there in 18. I think a lot of Florida folks thought that Georgia was going to, they had their one season, that Dan Mullen was the better, quote, coach, and that the Gators were going to get them. And they lost 36-17, a gentleman's blowout, we'll call it. A season later was a tight fight with Georgia. This was the one where Matt DeBerry could tell you the Gators were convinced they were going to win that game. Now, remember, in 19, Georgia lost a couple of weeks before that to South Carolina and just didn't look good on offense, generally speaking. The year before, they had lost to LSU and then had a week off, and then, of course, the game with the Gators. But uh, Florida stuck in there, never could get the lead, and I think they were down 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, and had 2 touchdowns, but they were kind of too late. 17 points was not bad for Dan Mullen against Georgia, and then a season later, his only win against the Dogs, that was a 44-point spot he put up on Georgia, 44-28. A pretty solid beating to be sure, 16 points. So, that was Stetson Bennett's last game starting for some time. We saw him give way to JT Daniels. He let JT Daniels rent the job for about 18 months, it felt like. And then, obviously the last game with Dan Mullen and Georgia was the one. I don't know if that game got Dan fired, 34-7. Florida stuck in there for a while, but they just didn't have the guys to really compete with Georgia the way that you've got to if you really plan on winning the game. I mean, by the half, the game was over. I do think that he left Florida in pretty good position. We'll see how the Gators do this weekend against Kentucky. But when you take a step back after week 1, it really was a good showing for Georgia. I'm not sure it was such a good showing that you would predict them to win the national championship over Ohio State. That's I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe that's right. I'm skeptical, generally speaking. The older I get, I think it's a good way to be. I'm not sure I would have them playing Ohio State in the national championship. The conventional thinking is that Georgia will lose the SEC championship and play Ohio State in Phoenix. But as we know, conventional thinking doesn't always add up. So we'll just see how that goes. I do think it was a bit revealing that Dan would say, okay, hey, listen, I've watched all these games. I think Georgia's the best team. I think they're going to win the national championship. I don't even think they're going to play Alabama twice, just the one time. And by the way, he's got it structured. It looks like Georgia would win the conference, play Michigan in a rematch of last year's Orange Bowl. That game would be in Atlanta. That would be a tough game for Michigan. But Michigan played pretty well this past weekend. I mean, they were one of the teams, and when you look at the top 10, who played well? Well, not Utah. I do not think Ohio State played great. Obviously, Utah and Notre Dame lost. Texas A&M did not look great. Clemson looked even worse than Texas A&M. So I thought Michigan had a good week. I'm really excited about this weekend of college football for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the games are pretty spread out in terms of the top 25, so you can watch a lot of games from noon until midnight um, on different channels. When you look at, when you look at the this week's games, Alabama kicking the game the weekend off against Texas at noon. That's a great start. You can, if you're curious, you can have Ohio State and Miami on at the same time. That South Carolina Arkansas game is another game that I think is important, not for the national championship. Then you fast forward to the 3 o'clock hour. A game I would pay attention to: Texas A&M and Appalachian State. I mean, Texas A&M is almost a four-score favorite, more than a three-score favorite to win that game. You got Tennessee and Pittsburgh. That's probably the marquee game of the mid-afternoon. We'll see if Tennessee is legit. I think they win that game just because, I don't know. I'm spitting that out. They looked a lot better than Pitt did in their opener. Well, we'll just see. You know, I'm not betting my house on it. And then you got the game, perhaps of the day, in terms of great matchup, is Kentucky and the Gators. I've got Kentucky winning that game. That's at 7 o'clock. And then you fast forward to the 10:30 window, and this will come on right after Kentucky and the Gators on ESPN. Is BYU hosting Baylor? That's a top 10 Baylor going out to BYU, a team that at this stage with Utah losing, BYU is now your outsider team because BYU's got these games on their schedule. They got Baylor top 10, Notre Dame top 10, Arkansas. So, and they also have Stanford. So I skipped the Oregon game, and they got Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas, East Carolina, and Stanford. These are, if you win and you go undefeated in your BYU, you should be in the playoff. Just saying. I think it would be curious to see what happens if they did get into the playoff, because they probably would not be the one seed, which would mean they would be in Phoenix and be able to host, even though they'd be the 2 or the 3, that game. So I think it's a great weekend of college football. If you're very curious about what all these teams can do, you're going to see real quick. Again, Alabama, Texas at the start. You got your middle covered with. I rotated off the screen. The middle of the day, while Georgia's playing, while they're beating Samford's brains in, is going to be really good too, because you've got that Texas A&M Appalachian State game, Tennessee Pittsburgh. Those are really fun games in the middle. If you kind of get bored and want to watch Wisconsin play Washington State, I don't. And then at 7:30 with the Kentucky Florida will be what you keep the most attention to. This fan base that I'm talking to, the hundreds of thousands of y'all that I'm talking to each month, that's what y'all will be watching. And then I think Arizona State, Oklahoma, USC, Stanford. And then the late game is probably the most intriguing in many ways, because it's BYU and Baylor, two teams that just don't play each other. It's going to be a great weekend at Athens. The rain, hey, look, it's going to rain sometimes. It's just what it is. don't, concern yourself too much about that. Nothing you can do about it. But we'll be in Athens. Make sure you're going to Red Zone. If you've not picked up Dawgstruction, the link is down below, or you can pick it up at Red Zone. You pick it up at Red Zone, and you get our what's left of while they remain, and they could be wiped out this weekend, of our 2022 preview with Brock Bowers on the cover. We'll see you in Athens.